Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife review, and I have a knife I really like to share with you here. This is an Artisan cutlery knife. Now, it's, construction wise and materials wise, it's more of a CJRB. It's definitely on the budget end of the spectrum. But this is the Artisan Cutlery Arian, and it's a budget version. This is exclusive to White Mountain Knives, Brown Micarta RPM 9 steel. I've had a few Artisans. I've liked some of them. I haven't loved all of them. Most of the ones I've really enjoyed have been from CJRB, and that would have been the Feldspar and the Scoria, both of which are fantastic. Two of my top budget knife recommendations. That said, this is, I don't know if I want to say better, but it is close. I really like this knife. There's a lot of things here that I find just a little bit better than those two knives. It's thinner than the Feldspar and gives me a little more room in hand. It's bigger than the Scoria and gives me a little more blade steel thickness and overall confidence, because this is a really, a more hefty blade. Um, that that kind of gives you a good idea why I was so inclined to pick this up. Furthermore, the design is fantastic. So this is based on the Cerberus Knives Arian fixed blade, and it just gets a lot of stuff right. It's simple and clean, and yeah, I just find this highly appealing. So this isn't going to be just a total love fest, guys. There are a couple little things that I don't absolutely love, but overall, I'm a big fan of this knife, and it's definitely on my short list of the best things that I have seen out of Artisan cutlery. And if you've been around the channel, we've had quite a few, and that I'm a huge fan of the Scoria and the Feldspar. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of context as we get into this. And again, I actually like this so much that I've been toying with the idea of getting the full titanium version, which I think is in S35 VN. So size and weight on this, 8 3/8 overall. It's actually just shy of that. 3 5/8 on the blade length. All right, so nice big blade there. When you close the knife down, it's going to be 4 3/4 inches, 4 1/4 inches of grip area. So between these two fingers here, where my hand's got to fit, which is very welcome to me. Both the Scoria and the Feldspar were a little small. The Feldspar with the choil kind of made up for it, but the Feldspar, I always felt a little cramped. This, I don't feel cramped. I feel like I've got lots of room. Very comfortable. It is thin in pocket, so for a large knife, it carries really well, and it's also not that heavy. It's only 4 ounces, and it's only it's actually under 7/16 thick, so it's well under half an inch. So size, weight, and carry. I like everything about this. I love the blade length. I love the overall size. I love the handle real estate that I get. There's a lot of good here. Under size and weight, I think this is a total win. In terms of blade steel, it's the AR RPM 9, which is CJRB's, or I guess Artisan's, proprietary powdered metallurgy steel. And the performance on this steel for me has been good. And I'm not the only one. In fact, if you're wondering about this, like, take 5 minutes, Google this steel. You'll find it's a pretty impressive steel. Or go check out Cedric and Ada's tests with it. By all accounts, this is a really good performing budget steel, and I've had a few knives in this steel now, and it is easily on my short list. I would list 14C28 and 9CR18 MOV and AR RPM 9 would be on my very short list of great budget steels. I guess you'd have to add 154 CM to that these days, because it's found now on a bunch of budget knives as well. So really great steel. I think you're going to get great performance out of it. They do take it pretty hard, so if you're new to sharpening, just be aware, like, a lot of times guys who are newer will buy cheaper knives, and part of that is usually you're going to get softer steel. But RPM 9, some of them, sometimes it can get pretty hard, and Artisan says they take it to 60 Rockwell. And so if you're new and this is like your first foray into the hobby, that's a pretty that's a pretty high level of hardness for you to deal with when you're like just learning to sharpen. So that's about the only downside to the steel. For most of us who are knife nuts, that's great. We want to see those high Rockwell hardness numbers, especially in a budget knife. To get something that like that and to get the kind of performance this delivers is great. But if you're giving this knife as a gift, let's say to a friend or something, it might be something to think about, is that this is going to perform better than most budget steels, and that's going to come with a little bit of extra effort in sharpening. Overall, I find this blade really, really balanced. Like it's a reasonably thick blade stock. It's nice and wide, so it still slices well. It's pretty fine at the point. You're not going to want to drop this, but frankly, you don't want to be really dropping any of your knives when they're open. Not the least of your concerns is the blade landing on something that can be cut, but then you've also got the possibility of breaking that tip. So, that's kind of a thing that almost any knife is could potentially have a problem there. But this is a pretty fine tip all around, though. I find this blade pretty well balanced, and if you've been around the channel, I like a well balanced blade. I like a blade that slices well, but also makes me feel pretty confident that I don't have to worry about it being too fragile, and you definitely don't in this particular knife. Now that does bring us to the lockup and deployment, the action, if you will. This is a liner lock on bearings. It's got a deployment hole, or I guess a deployment groove. I don't know, a long skinny hole, I guess. um, and it works really, really well. This is super fun to Spidey flick. It's fantastic for that, and I do enjoy that a whole lot. You can still thumb roll it open quite easily. The action, or I mean, the feel of those bearings is quite smooth. All right, you can see very drop shutty knife there. Doesn't just drop like a guillotine, but it does drop shut nicely. The lock bar is accessible. The lockup itself is quite solid. So I'm pretty, very, very happy with everything about this. There's one sort of complaint that I have that'll actually come up under handle construction, so we'll hold on for that. But in terms of lockup and deployment, it's a liner lock, it's fidgety, it Spidey flicks really well, it's smooth. So all the things that we expect these days from a well done bearing deployed knife. Not bearing deployed, I'm sorry. From a knife with bearings in the pivot. I don't know why that was so hard to say, guys, but that's you know what I'm driving at. Let's talk about the handle now. There is one issue here. Now, first of all, let me say there's a lot that I like. It's comfortable. I've got lots of real estate. The micarta is grippy and looks fantastic. The clip is, now check this out, it's recessed into the handle and the screws are flush. That is really, really nice. I like that a lot. Now, it does mean that there's no option to flip this over. All right, that's pretty common on knives that are done this way, because if you're gonna allow for this clip to be flipped to left-hand carry, you've got to recess another hole out on this side, and they haven't done that. So that makes the show side look nice and clean, which I like, but I know some of you lefties are going to be a little disappointed. Nice deep carry clip here, goes in and out of pocket really, really well. No issues whatsoever with that clip. Ergonomically, you can kind of feel that it's there, but it's not uncomfortable in a hammer or saber grip. Reverse grip, I guess you kind of land on it, but again, the only time I use reverse grip is making these videos, so it doesn't really matter. So that's the handle. It's comfortable. The only, the construction here is micarta backspacer, lanyard post over here, but there is one issue, and that is there's a bit of flex here. It's not crazy, but you can see, I think, on camera a little bit of movement there. It's not bad. I think it's better because of the backspacer. If it were standoffs, I think it would be worse. And this has been one of those things I've noticed with a couple of Artisan knives. Haven't noticed it so much with CJRB, which is weird, but the Artisans sometimes have that bit of flex. And I think, they're trying, I think it kind of comes from knives trying to be so light and so thin that we don't complain about how heavy they are, and especially in a larger knife like this. I would take a little extra weight and a little less flex. I'm fine with that. I get that there's pressure from the marketplace to be as light as possible, and you got to make a compromise somewhere. And in this one, it's not so bad. I've had a couple of other Artisans where it's worse. This one is pretty good. And so it's almost a little unfair of me to complain to the degree that I am, but it's there, and so I thought I would point it out. Um, yeah, otherwise, I mean, that's a fairly minor issue for me, and otherwise, I really, really love everything about this knife. Let's go ahead and grab some comparisons. I do have one fairly obvious comparison here, and that's going to be the Artisan Great White. Similar size, obviously very different. The design here is much more sort of out there. In terms of a practical EDC knife, obviously this is going to be what most people are going to be drawn to, and certainly myself as well. I thought I'd throw in, there's this Kaiser XL button lock bag letter is big and kind of a similar price point. I think it's a little bit more. My Carta, I like this knife a little bit more, but I think it also costs a little bit more. So I thought I'd throw that in as a comparison. We've got the Para 2, this time in my Carta. So this is an upgraded Para 2. This is obviously going to cost quite a bit more. And it's not a comparison for, yeah, you may want this instead. It's just a comparison for everyone kind of knows about the Para 2. Now, one last knife that I want to throw in here, and that is the Real Steel H6. This is, just my go-to sort of budget liner lock that is really, really well done. And so, I felt like it was worth putting in here. You can see the size is very similar. This is going to be quite a bit heavier, and it's designed to be a little more on the robust end of the spectrum. So those are the comparisons. Let's wrap this up with a conclusion. What do I think of this knife? Well, obviously, guys, if you've been watching up to this point, I really, really like it. And I do. This is a fantastic knife. I think Artisan has done a great job here. The design is just exceptionally well done. The blade steel is good. The blade shape is good. The ergonomics are good. The weight and size are good. Like, this is a really, really nice knife. And if you like if you have the same issues that I do with the Feldspar and the Scoria, both of which, by the way, I think are great knives, but this might be a really, really nice alternative for you. All right, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out White Mountain Knives. That's where I got this, and you can save yourself 10% off using my discount code SHARPSTUFF. We will talk to you soon.